Hi guys, my name is Shivan and you're watching Caspian Report. By the time this video is published, the meeting between Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan and Armenian President Sargsyan will have already taken place in Washington. Erdogan and Sargsyan will both be involved in the International Nuclear Safety Conference in the United States. It's also assumed that each of them will meet with the US President Obama individually. These meetings and negotiations should help untie a tight knot of the conflicts and contradictions between Armenians and Turks and Armenians and Azerbaijanis. The parties have specific agreements, the Zurich Protocols and the updated Madrid Principles worked out with the international mediators. However, there is still no assurance that they will be adopted, ratified and implemented. And the main point is not clashing the interests of regional and great powers in the region. Now, we are used to see Armenia as the opposite side of the Turkish-Armenian and Azerbaijani-Armenian conflicts that has lasted for decades. This is true. However, despite the undeniable dominance of common goals, there are clear differences of interest between Nagorno-Karabakh separatists, also known as the Karabakh clan, and Republic of Armenia and the Armenian diaspora. This may seem surprising, but nevertheless, the fact is that Armenia is more than just suffering from the conflicts with Turkey and Azerbaijan. The population of Armenia carries a historical animosity on its shoulders, while Armenia's interests are from time to time and again sacrificed for unrealistic requirements by the Karabakh clan and the diaspora. As a result of hostility with its neighbors, Armenia drove itself into an economic blockade and isolation. The country lost a third of its population over the next 2 decades. With last year's economic crisis, we witnessed a 20% downturn in the economy of Armenia, which was, by the way, the highest rate in the CIS area. External debts have reached almost 50% of its GDP. Basically, Armenia survives thanks to the remittance of Armenian immigrants to their relatives and foreign loans and financial aid. But there are no prospects of improvement in the country. The leadership of Armenia and propagandists in the capital often brag about the high rankings of Armenia in terms of economic freedom. Perhaps Armenia has freedom, but it certainly does not have an economy. Those little crumbs that are available in the country are distributed by the approximate oligarch groups in the manual mode, ignoring existing laws and regulations. The Armenian diaspora provides financial aid and funds for roads, museums, cultural and educational programs, but it does not make any significant investments in the industrial production of Armenia. However, the local labor force is very cheap and quite qualified, and there are many multinational companies that are either owned or managed by ethnic Armenians. These companies may open branches in Armenia and move manufacture of some high-tech products to the country, but this has not yet happened, not even in the last 2 decades, because any business project requires to determine the sales market before making any decisions. In fact, the Armenian market is extremely narrow. For example, Iran has shielded its domestic market by high customs barriers. The country also faces some Western sanctions. The access to the solvent regional markets like Turkey and Azerbaijan are closed because of Armenia's own policies. This basically puts Armenia in complete isolation. It makes it impossible to transit goods to the markets of Russia, Europe, and Middle East through Armenia. It's impossible. In other words, Armenia will be able to survive, but it is in no position to achieve sustainable growth, sustainable development without settling its relations with its neighbors. Understanding this, as well as the elementary comparison of demographic and economic resources of Armenia and Azerbaijan, not even to mention Turkey, forced the former Armenian president Levent Tepratosyan in the mid-90s to seek a compromise with Ankara and Baku in the conflict resolution. However, this policy was met with sharp opposition both in Nagorno-Karabakh and by the diaspora. As a result, the first president of Armenia was forced to resign, enabling the representative of the Karabakh clan, Robert Kocharyan, to seize power. The priority task for Kocharyan and his supporters was the complete separation of Nagorno-Karabakh from Azerbaijan and to annex the territory with Armenia in a legal way. To achieve his goal, Kocharyan was even prepared to give part of Armenian territory to Azerbaijan. This part was known as Mevri region, or also known as Zengezur corridor. Now his successor, another representative of the Karabakh clan, President Sarkisyan, seeks to exchange the genocide claim with Turkey for its refusal to support Azerbaijan in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. However, exchange efforts by Kocharyan and Sarkisyan have failed so far. The Turkish government, ruled by Prime Minister Erdogan and President Gül, rejected the cynical deal proposed by the Karabakh clan and the Armenian diaspora after little hesitation, but they took a principled position, saying that the Armenian-Turkish normalization and the opening of the borders will not happen until process in the Karabakh conflict resolution has been achieved. As a result of this, the Armenian diaspora refused to give up its Haydat idea, which is basically Armenian revenge against Turkey. While persistence is the distinctive quality of Armenians, they owe many of their achievements in crafts, science, arts, and sports to this quality. But this persistent quality has also brought them historical tragedies in politics. Perhaps they simply needed to pay attention to the Pleiades principles, which say that he who wants more than he can have may end up with less than he might have had. But apparently the Karabakh clan, which is intoxicated with power and wealth, does not bother to be prudent. Even the current Yerevan, which is far from being prosperous, is much better than Khankendi for them. They have already secured their personal successes in life. As for the diaspora, well, it's not hard to wage a relentless struggle against Turkey while being in the comfort and security in the United States, or France, or any other such place. It should take into account that the Armenian Church and the generation-old idea of retribution on Turks is a factor allowing Armenians abroad to preserve their ethnic identity and not dissolve into the globalized world. Dozens of advocacy organizations have been working in this field for many decades, whose employees have made collection and expenditures of substantial funds to fight for the recognition of the genocide, which is their source of existence. Caught between Karabakh and the diaspora, Armenia will more deeply plunge into a social-economic stagnation in the quagmire of its financial debt. The current situation in the country is becoming intolerable and cannot last forever. So far, the united opposition led by former President Levent Tepratosyan has been limited to verbal criticism of the Sarkisyan government. But when the failure and collapse of the Sarkisyan policy and government becomes obvious, there will be a need to take a decisive action in order to sober up the mass of the Armenian population from the nationalist mentality. This will allow for a positive program of reconciliation with its neighbors on the principles of equal security and respect for every citizen, regardless of ethnicity and religion. This was a Caspian report by me, Shirvan. Thank you for watching. Sağ ol.